Hey, everybody, off the Mike Sports Network here. Another edition of Cavs Thoughts here because, man, it looks like a funeral on Cavs social media. Since what happened on Sunday night, Cavs get absolutely obliterated by the Indiana Pacers. They're down 3-1. Donovan Mitchell, questionable for game five. He's going to play. Like, he's told multiple media people it's precaution. We didn't even hear any word on the MRI that Kenny Atkinson said he was going to get. Donovan Mitchell is playing in game five, and it's going to be on the Cavs to pull a miracle here. Otherwise, there's going to be some interesting discussions this offseason. But let me just address this in this video here. So a lot of people are saying we're going to have some hard conversations about, what the future of this group is based off of a potential second round exit. And a lot of people are assuming that this thing is over. I don't. If you look at the margins and you look at the way that this series has gone, those first two games were coin flips. And Evan Mobley was laboring at the end of that game. DeAndre Hunter didn't finish that game. Darius Garland didn't play in that game. Game two, they were up by 20. They had a 7-point lead in the last minute and blew that. And basically the other two games were blowouts. And yeah, they got absolutely run off the floor in game four. Donovan Mitchell they were down by 41 at half. They gave up 80 and a half. Like, that was a 1 in a million shooting type performance. And Indiana, their pace, they're called the Pacers. Their pace is a problem. And the Cavs, I think, and a lot of people in the NBA world have underestimated this team. But let me be one of many people to kind of state the obvious here, or at least for some people who think that there's magically a fix here for this team. Like, first of all, if you think that trading somebody away from this group to try and go get somebody better and try and improve this team is going to work, the Cavs are a second apron team. If you don't know what that means, they are restricted from basically doing a lot of things because of where they are in terms of salary. That's the way the new NBA works, and it's brought more parity to the league, but it also shrinks windows of teams that are talented to, go out and spend. Like, the Celtics are going to have a hard conversation if they can't come back against the Knicks. And if Jason Tatum, as it looks like, is significantly injured, the Celtics, as currently constructed, are probably not going to be the same group next year. So if you're the Cavs and you're looking at this, a couple things. First, as I said, if they don't come back to win this series, that game two is going to come back to haunt them big time. But also game one, too. The Pacers had some fortune in this series. And you know what? That's kind of just the nature of the beast. It's like, it's a war of attrition. And the Cavs, despite, really handling their bench very well, it's just like it's been a snowball of just horrible things that have happened to the Cavs in this series. Like, the worst possible things that could happen. Their star point guard didn't start the series. Their backup point guard, Ty Jerome, who had been excellent all season, has had the worst stretch of his entire run with the Cavs. The Cavs have not been able to hit an outside shot to save their life. And three of their top 7 best players did not play in game two, and they blew that game despite having a big lead in the fourth quarter and in the final minute. So if you want to break this team up just because, hey, they're going to lose to a 4 seed in the second round, it's disappointing. Absolutely. But there are some excuses here, and why I think that there is an argument that, hey, you don't need to really change anything. Maybe make a few tweaks, but I don't think that by any stretch of the imagination that we should just, immediately just dismiss this team because, hey, they got bounced in the second round, and despite being a 64-win team. People need to understand about Indiana and why maybe I should have been a little bit more worried. Indiana was one of the best teams in the NBA after January 1st. They are. One of the reasons why they're finished in fourth is because they started off the season so terribly and Tyrese Halliburton was hurt. They are a good team. When you get to this stage of the playoffs, you are facing good teams. And Indiana has gotten helped a little bit because the Cavs have had just unbelievably bad luck. Unbelievably bad luck. They can't hit a shot. Their players are getting hurt. They're blowing leads. They can't inbound the ball. All this other shit that's been going on. And then basically yesterday, or Sunday, or depending on whenever you're watching this, game 4, the Cavs just, gave up. They gave up because they weren't hitting shots. And sometimes that can get to your psyche. And that's the mental aspect of the game. And when you're not making shots and It's going to lead to affecting your defense. And Indiana is just relentless. And it's hard for me as a fan to completely absolve a lot of people of blame, but to act like this is totally a complete and utter failure of one of these teams that I've referenced as one seeds who are fully healthy and lost to 8 seeds. Yes, this is a disappointing season because it's a historic season for the Cavs. They get to the second round. Donovan Mitchell, this has followed him his entire career, and unless there's a historic comeback here, which only a handful of teams have done, they're going to be thought of a certain way. But that being said, given all of the context that you can provide to this situation, I don't think there's any real reason to consider wholesale changes. Because remember what happened after last year? Everybody was hey, we got to trade Jared Allen. Hey, we got to trade Darius Garland. Hey, we got to do this. All they did was bring in Kenny Atkinson. He won Coach of the Year. They won 64 games. They had a 16-win improvement, number 1 seed in the East, second best team in the NBA, and they just ran into a bad matchup and had a lot of things go against them. So before you just try to say, hey, we need to go trade for this superstar, first of all, that's impossible given the new NBA rules. And secondly, given the context of what's gone on in this stretch run of the season where they've been put in a 3-1 hole, maybe they just run it back and see, hey, we can try and do this again and hope that the chips roll our way the next time, because they're still young. They're still very talented. They still, have most of the guys signed up for next season. They're still going to bring back the Coach of the Year. And, this is just the NBA, man. You just don't know. So, yeah, I'm discouraged, but I'm not one of these people who's just going to have a funeral and mourn the end of this Cavs roster and this Cavs group that, has really provided a lot this season just because, a couple games didn't go their way. Yeah, I understand people are prisoners of the moment because, hey, that was a choke job in game 2. They quit in game 4. All you got to do is win 1 and put the pressure on Indiana, have a 1-game mindset, do it at a time. This team won 15 games, won 15 games in a row during the season. They won 12 games in a row. They had 3 double-digit winning streaks. I understand the playoffs are a little bit different, but there is every bit of a possibility that the Cleveland Cavaliers could come back and win this series and could totally change the narrative. And if they don't, I don't think that's a referendum on this group as a whole because, like I said, context, if you apply it, tells you that, hey, some things just did not go right for the Cavs in the playoffs, and they had just a horrendous amount of luck. So if you're one of these, people who's just ready to just, wave the white flag and just be miserable with yourself, like most Cleveland fans, maybe I'm just an idiotic optimist, but I think there's a chance that they can come back. But also, I do think there's a chance that they could come back, run this thing back next year if they needed to, and, be able to contend at the level that they have and try this thing again. It sucks what's happened, but that doesn't mean that this whole thing is just a failure and just means that you need to just rip everything apart because, again, they can't do anything really because of just the way the rules are. And what's the better option? Even if there weren't any restrictions. Just think about that, guys. Come on. Calm down. Anyway, thanks so much. I'll see you guys. Bye.